Welcome back to another podcast episode. So today I'm going to answer a few questions on my anonymous link, and I want to talk about grieving your past self and grieving others' past self, and a few other topics in between. Okay, so I saw a quote on Instagram. It said, ironically, when we start to get better, we often also get sad because we start to realise how much we missed out on, how badly people failed us, what the younger version of us actually deserved. Healing involves healthy grieving. And this got me thinking, it's very true. Like, grieving, obviously, when someone passes, is like the most horrendous thing as well. But you never really think of grieving in the sense of when someone is still alive. And I think is a pretty hard thing to do as well. Starting with ourselves, like, we are going to have to grieve so many different versions of ourselves as we grow, as we evolve, as we learn. And I think the biggest thing is to never regret or be upset by anything you've gone through, because you would not be the person that you are today. Obviously, there's some traumatic things that people and me wish we could erase and everything, but for the generic stuff in life, I would never want to change anything because it has shaped me to be who I am. However, there is a lot of the times when me, and I know a lot of you, will be angry and cringe and be pissed off that we did or let certain things happen to that version of ourselves. And we know that we wouldn't let ourselves do that now. Looking back and thinking, why did I let that person do that to me? Because you know now that you have a new set of boundaries and that you're a strong person. But back then you might have been a little bit naive. The important thing is not to be angry at yourself. Instead, grieve that version of yourself, because that version no longer exists. There is a new version of you, and without that old version, you would have never got to this new version. So you cannot be angry. You can feel some type of way, but never be pissed off, because looking back, that's all you would have known. I think the most important thing, and something that's really helped me, is it is everyone's first time on this earth. It is your first time in every situation you go through. It's the first time your family, your friends, your relationships have been through a situation. So it's very hard to place blame on yourself or others when this might have been the first time that they've made a mistake like this or let something like this happen. No one here is an expert. There was no way that the younger version of you could have sat in a situation and knew exactly 100% what to do. We all make mistakes and we all let things happen to us that probably didn't need to happen. But again, it shapes you to be who you are today. Something that's really helped me is, with forgiveness and closure, is understanding, like, okay, yeah, it's maybe those friends, those family members, those relationships' first time in this place. A lot of things doesn't come with malicious intent. It just is mistakes and, miscommunication and non-compatibility and things like that. Some things is pure malicious and pure disrespectful, but it really does help you bring yourself a little bit of closure when you look back and think, how was I supposed to know how to deal with that situation? It is my first time on this earth. So the most important thing is to realise, okay, we need to grieve this old version of myself, because that version is not coming back. We have healed and worked so hard on ourselves to have these new strong core boundaries and values and personality that I will no longer let that old version of myself ever creep back into this new version of me. So instead of just sitting there and cringing at it and keeping it at bay, I'm going to grieve it. That version of me has died and will stay in the grave, forever hidden. There might be traits that come out, but those traits are not from the old version of myself. Those traits are just embedded in my soul that I'm trying to heal and work on. So I might have a couple traits in this version of me now that maybe in a year will go and there'll be different traits. But that whole version of you maybe 2 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever, has died completely. And it might be hard to visualize, but it will bring you the most peace ever, because then you stop reminiscing and focusing so much on the past and, well, if I'd done this, if I changed that, because no matter how much you fixate on that, it's not going to change the past. And even if you did do all those things, well, then you wouldn't be the person you are today. You'd be a different person. We will never 100% know, and that's why trusting the process and knowing the amount you do is important. I think it is important to be self-aware, to definitely take accountability and to stop for a moment to process what you're letting slide, what you're doing to others, how you're portraying yourself. Writing it down is important. Like, whenever I have a situation now, even if it's a bit minor, I try and write down in my notes how I'm feeling about it. Is there something I can do to help the situation, make it worse? Really make sure that I am aware of my actions to make sure that I reduce the chances of making a mistake. However, it is my first time here, so naturally I'm going to make mistakes, or I'm going to let things slide, or let people walk all over me because maybe it's the first time I've been placed in that type of environment. Learning to grieve that version of yourself will help you to move on and level up. Because if you're always constantly fixating on the past and that old version of yourself, then you're kind of merging this new version and old version into like this middle ground, and you're not leveling up there. You're kind of staying at the same step, and you need to let go of that entirely to move on. So you've got to learn to grieve that. I think sometimes what's hurt me the most is where I have felt like I have leveled up, I have worked on bad traits of mine, and then I've wanted to implement those new traits that I've learned, those new things, into an old environment or an old situation or an old version of myself. And I feel like I've worked really hard, I'm ready to like accomplish these new things, and then I get put in that situation and it doesn't work. It could be a person or a situation where their direction's going over there, and you're so fixated on comfortability and familiarity that you want to follow that path and make sure that you're like up to date with that person or that thing. So you might start to change yourself and change traits about yourself to align with that direction, but fate could tell you that your direction's not there, it's over here. So I think what's disappointing sometimes is when you work so hard to follow one certain direction, either to follow what you think is meant for you, and then you finally get to a place where you feel ready to show that and implement it, and then that's kind of cut off right in front of your eyes and you're re-diverted over here, and it's kind of like I didn't even get a chance to see if that was 100%, but that is the blessing in disguise. So grieve it whenever it is cut off in front of you, or you're diverted, you've leveled up, you realise that is not what I tolerate anymore, that is not the mistakes, and that is not how I would treat people anymore. You've got to learn to forgive yourself and grieve that past version of yourself. Some of us might have been horrible little devils growing up and said horrible things or did like cringy things, but understanding that that is all in the past, it's time to forgive your inner child, forgive yourself, and as long as you take accountability for some of your bad traits back in the past or even now, it's okay to grieve that and move on. But yeah, it's important to understand that there was a reason that that version of you at that time was in that specific environment. If you think, why wasn't I strong enough? Well, because the stronger version of you wasn't supposed to be there yet. It didn't exist. It wasn't alive yet. You have to kind of grieve and let the old version of you pass away before the new one comes. And to do that is to go through these difficult things and let bad things happen, and you learn from it. That's the whole point of the human life process. This links into grieving past versions of other people. I think this is one of the hardest things, is grieving someone that's still alive. This is very difficult. You look at someone, and this kind of happens quite a lot, like childhood friends, or people that are dealing with like addiction and things, and you know them as someone that you really loved. They were bright, sprightly, whatever attracted you to them, and now there's like nothing there, or they're just a different mean person, or your energies are not compatible anymore. And that can be really hard to accept, because you know someone so well and think, yeah, I love this version of them so much, and that version died. That version does not exist, either in a good or bad way. And that can be something, again, that you have to grieve. And you look at someone and think, okay, we're just not compatible anymore. I do not like your energy and how you live your life. You might not like how I live my life. So we just don't work anymore. We just are not compatible. But walking away from that can feel fine. But then it's like, where's the closure? You really have to grieve that version that you really had good times with, because it doesn't exist anymore. And that can be really sad, and it can also be sad when you're grieving past versions of you too. Sometimes we lose our sort of innocence and our spark, because we're dealing with adult things now. We have to become more serious. So, regardless, when you're grieving yourself or someone else, it can be a very horrible, sad time, but ultimately it's always going to lead you to better things. Grieving past selves is leading you to become better versions of yourself, and grieving past versions that don't exist anymore allows you to remove bad baggage, remove bad energy that isn't growing or aligning with your new version of yourself. So it does make it easier in the long run. But it is kind of difficult when you know someone still exists and they're still a person, but they're not the person that you know, or that other people might have grown up with, where you look at someone and think, what changed? But that's fine. They've just changed on their own terms in a different direction that might just be entirely different to yours. So that's okay. It gives you closure, and you can't be mad at that. It's just, we're growing up, we're adults now, people change. Some people are cold, some people are bright and sprightly, some people have different goals, and yeah. Okay, so I've got a few questions on my anonymous link, so you can leave some more for the next future episodes. But the first one is advice on how to let things go. Stuff like disagreements and arguments replay in my head and consumes me. I struggle with letting things go. For me, I think the biggest thing that's helped me with this is journaling, or just writing things down in a notes app or notes page. There's probably a situation that's happened that you have so much to say and maybe never got the chance to communicate everything you felt. And I've felt that throughout my whole life, where, you know, when you finish an argument with someone and you're like, I have so many better things to say now that's over, but it's not worth talking about anymore. It will still be in your head consuming you. So the biggest thing for me is I've just started to like write them on my notes app, because I can't be bothered to write with a pen, so I just like ferociously type as if I'm getting all my thoughts out, and then you just never send it because off your shoulders then. If it's still weighing on your mind, I always do the whole 72-hour thing. Like if you've fallen out with someone, you've written it down, you've tried to process your emotion and it's still on your brain, sometimes it is worth mentioning. But what you need to do is write down all your angry thoughts first and then condense it down into something that's a bit more diplomatic before sending it. But majority of the time it's not worth sending, it's not worth bringing up anymore, and something just might still bother you. So I'd say just journal it down. Something I do is like video myself as well, like little vlogs, and you can hide it in your Myers only or delete it straight after, or voice notes. When I go through a hard time, I voice note every day, kind of giving myself daily updates. How do I feel about the situation? And eventually you literally just get bored of talking about it and you'll just drop it, you'll just let it go. But the best thing is confide in your friends, confide in your notes app, all these things where no one's going to see it, it's not going to affect anyone, and it doesn't matter how many times you need to talk about it, get it off your chest. Bottling it up is only going to make it worse. So if you need to record yourself every day for the next month talking about the same situation on repeat, you do that. It will help you learn to let go. Thing to remember is everyone wants to achieve peace. So achieving peace is, you will learn that you have to let go of things. Whatever is in the past has happened. It is what it is. There is no way you can change that. And the future is written in God's hand. It is the universe, fates. You have no control over that pretty much whatsoever. Like, you have free will. You can choose where you want to go. But trust me, if something's not for you, it will scoop you right back to the center line. So I think the biggest key for me, kind of learning to like just not really care about things or situations, is just living in the present. It's just spending each day, you know, not even going, I think social media and phones don't help. Like waking up in the morning and checking social media keeps that like impulsivity in your head where you're just like, has anyone messaged me? Is there an update on X situation or whatever? And it's just pointless. Instead, maybe just don't look at your phone for the first hour. Maybe read when you wake up, or go straight for a walk, make yourself a nice breakfast, and look at things like Pinterest instead if you need your phone, or watch a YouTube video. You don't need to be constantly this mindset of updating and what have I missed out on, because that just doesn't put you in the present. It's just keeping you on what did I miss in the past or what's coming up. So just like little like mindset changes like that I think have really helped. You say arguments replay in your head, just know that that was the best you could have done. There's nothing to do to change it now. Even like I used to do this all the time when I get upset, like I don't get my words out properly, I get a bit emotional and I get really angry at myself that I haven't been able to express exactly how I feel. But there is nothing I can do about that situation. There is things you can do. You can learn how to, okay, let's not get emotional, by writing things down a few days in advance, so you've got all the heatedness out of a situation and then you're just thinking logically and clearly, so you know what to do. So there's ways to like help yourself in future situations to be able to you know, communicate properly, better, really get your point across. But when a situation's already happened, there is nothing you can change, and you want to get to that point of peace where you're just like, I don't actually care. Like, I've got work to do, I've got hobbies to do. You want to go out for a nice walk, you've got to look after yourself, put yourself first. Like, you don't have time. You want to be at a place where you just do not have time to be reminiscent and thinking over silly little arguments that really don't help better you as a person. Okay, I think the last question I'm gonna do is dependence on other people, like someone else having so much control over your emotions. How do you shake that? With this, first of all, you need to find a sense of self, 100%. Who makes you? What makes me? What makes Maisie? What hobbies do I like? What music do I like? What is my job? what is my friends, family, all the things that exist within you. Build that sense of self. Who were you before this person? Who are you potentially going to be after? What goals do you have that don't need anyone else around you? And that really gives you something to work towards where you don't really need anyone to interfere. So like for me, like this podcast doesn't really involve any of my loved ones. It's just goals that I have for myself. So I'll spend time here by myself, recording these episodes and editing them, making some graphics for them. And it's a hobby of mine. It's something I do. I go to work. I need to turn my phone off because I'm putting my heart and soul into my work. Remembering priorities. When you're in like a relationship, it's a bit different because there's a bit of compromise. But when it's becoming dependence, you need to learn to like shift some of the priorities around and think, okay, like if that person needs me at my beckoning call, I've got to learn that if I'm in the middle of work or something like personal to me, I'm not free. I do it with my friends as well. Like I used to always want to be like, if my friends like, should we go out? I wanted to always be that person. I was like, yeah, let's do it. But now if I know I need to clean this room, I'm going to say no. I'm going to put myself first, have the sense of self that I need to clean this room first because once this is clean, it's going to make me feel good when I come and sleep here at night. Gives me a good night's sleep, less stress, putting me and my mental health first, and then the person or whoever wants to go out with me is second. It's difficult when you have dependence over someone, especially if you've got a few mental health things or you're quite like an obsessive, clingy person. But remembering that like if you've got a hole that needs filling, do not use other people to fill that hole. You need to learn how to fill it yourself. And even if that means taking a bit of space from someone, so just like but making sure that you communicate this, that, you know what, I actually really do like you, but almost too much. So I'm just going to take some space because otherwise my priorities are going to get a bit blurred and I'm going to lose my sense of self and it could turn a bit ugly. I think what you have to understand is try and really separate moods. And I think the biggest thing is if you're waiting for a reply or something, like that is just not worth your time. Refreshing your phone all the time, waiting for someone else and your mood relying on them, it's just not fun. You need to learn to like turn the phone off. Do you know what I mean? Or if someone says they're going to meet you at this time and then they're like 10 hours late, like you shouldn't be sitting there waiting for them at their beckoning call. Like everything should be on your terms. Regardless, a little bit of compromise here and there. But yeah, if you're checking your messages every 5 seconds, that's not healthy. Instead, you want to turn your phone off and get some stuff done for yourself. Go to the gym. In the gym, you could spend 30 minutes, or do you want to sit at home 30 minutes being a bit sad because someone hasn't replied to you? No, you wanna put yourself first and know that you could have so much more productivity with your time. Because then what's great is you've been to the gym, say you've cleaned your room, then this person might spend some time with you and you feel in a much better clear headspace. There's no resentment then. I feel like this is where you can resent someone. If someone's like holding you back a little bit from completing your own goals or your own hobbies, you can start to blame the other person and resent them, and it might not even be their fault. It could just be your sort of lack of separating yourself from that person. That person could be busy all day and has communicated that perfectly fine. But if you're the type of person to sit there and just wait, and then you've missed out on a whole day, you then might like feel a bit of resentment towards that person for making you wait all day. But they didn't make you wait. You could have gone out and done a million other things for you personally as a human and as a soul. So once you have these productive days where you put yourself first and then you compromise and spend time with this person that you like so much, then you don't feel as angry. You feel like you've had a great day, and then this is a bonus that you get to spend time with someone that you like so much. But communicating when you need space is key as well, and it's healthy to take space every now and then. I don't think you should be seeing the same person every day. You know, living with someone's even more different, but me personally, I would like to have a space where you can have a bit separate rooms. You get on with you watch different shows, maybe you spend your evenings a little bit separately and then come together at the very end. You want to make sure that you still have values and hobbies and routines that are separate to this other person, because as soon as you start merging them, then that's when you just depend on them, and all you think when you think of you and your life is also them, and that can get really unhealthy and dangerous. I think if you're upset about a situation or you're waiting for a response or something, it's just not worth sitting there in a sulk. It's worth being productive. It should strive and motivate you to do more. Go, you know what, I'm going to turn my phone off because this is just going to make me upset. I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm going to get all these things done that have been on my to-do list for a few months, get it all done, feel good about yourself, and then by the time that this person comes back, you'll be in a better mood regardless, because you've made yourself happy. You haven't relied on them to reach out or meet up with you to fill this hole or this sadness that you were feeling before. You've gone out your way to make yourself happy. This person can then come and make you even happier. It is important to not depend on people. And if you realise you are depending on someone too much, do take the space, and do just write down like a list of things that are personal to you, what makes you you, this sense of self. And sometimes it's important to set yourself boundaries. As hard as it is, sometimes it's important to say, no, I'm not meeting you today, I have other things to do. No, I'm not going to sit and wait for your message minute after minute. I'm turning my phone off, I've got things to do. And just live your life like that, because then when you do meet, it shouldn't be any of this anger and resentment, and when they're sad, you're sad, and no, you're two separate people. I think when you really like someone, like, their energy can rub off on you, which is fine, but obviously if someone's going through a hard time, you want to have that in doses. You don't want to like consume their energy or vice versa. But yeah, I think it's important. Like, even like I remember, like, when you're with someone and they're on their phone like all the time, like sometimes that mood can rub off on you and you feel sad. But don't even bother with that. If someone's on their phone the whole time, then leave. Go do something that you want to do. Do you know what I mean? If you're out at a meal, then you call it out or you leave. Like, if something's not making you happy, you take the action to change something, not just sit there in a sulk and absorb their energy. You try and, encourage them. If they're sad, you want to support them, obviously, but also learn to put yourself first. And if you're feeling down in the dumps so much because of them, that's where you need some time to separate and remind yourself who you actually are without this person. Okay, thank you for watching. A little bit of a less in-depth podcast, I guess, today. I just had a few more things I wanted to share and just wanted to answer some more questions. So if you have more for the next episode, there's a link in my bio. But yeah, I'll probably be doing some more of them, getting different topics, maybe some guests back on at some point, but I just feel like I have a lot to share at the moment, and I'm getting good feedback, so I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think.